Hello, you're welcome to the Tackling Sport Masters 2020 review. Welcome along, everybody, joining us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Firstly, I'm delighted to be joined, Stan Hussey here, delighted to be joined by my brother Sean, as always.
How's it going?
And in the bottom corner by Talk Birdie to Me, which is the first time I said that out loud, Shane O'Connell, who's the host and founder of Talk Birdie to Me podcast, which is a brilliant golf podcast. Shane, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, guys. Looking forward to reviewing the last 4 days and swapping sides, being on the other side of the hosting duties. So thanks again for having me.
Uncharted territory, Shane.
It is, yeah.
It's a lot tougher. I think I'm always in control of presenting it. But Sean, listen, your thoughts first, Sean, on the Masters 2020 as a whole, rather than maybe focus on the Sunday, I guess, as a whole over the 4 days. How did you find it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, like you still enjoy any major, really. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as other years. For a few different reasons, which we'll get into. But I think the fact that in the year 2020, you with everything that's gone on, you're still able to watch, the Masters, albeit without the drama that comes with it. Like I had real high hopes for it. I spoke about how because of the lack of fans, you might be able to get you more camera angles that you mightn't see. You might see the undulations more, but I think with the course in November, I think it's proved to be, with the weather they've had and conditions, it's not as fast as firm. It's not the beast that it normally is in April. So look, from that sense, I was a little bit disappointed. You could see with the lack of patrons there were different angles that you could get. Don't get me wrong, but I think come Sunday, more than anything, you really felt that the lack of noise and roars that sort of, traditionally, if you like, reverberate round Augusta. I think that was missing, and I think that, has a huge dampener on the 4 days. Look, like I said, it was brilliant to watch and something to consume over the weekend, but I don't think it will go down as one of my favourites.
Yeah, Shane, what were your thoughts on that? The same question to you. It just seemed like it kind of fizzled out towards the end, as tournaments normally do. Any tournament, when a player like Dustin Johnson is just too strong.
Yeah, certainly. Even looking ahead to today's final round yesterday evening, it was more of a case of, will DJ break the scoring record rather than will he win it? There wasn't a huge amount of competition when he got 4 under through the first 4 yesterday, and you knew then it was a case of everyone else was playing for second place. As we saw the kind of scramble today, Rory was still able to backdoor his way in there and stuff like that. There just wasn't the same excitement. It wasn't that there was a race between a number of players. It was just DJ blew the field away, showed his class, world number one. I suppose you look at his last 6 results coming in here. He was someone that was just hitting top form at the right end of the year. And I suppose the headlines just were all over Bryson. I was talking about, was he going to blow it away? There was so many people on Google Maps looking at where he could potentially land his drives. And it just wasn't the case. And he was at the other end of the leaderboard and just making bogeys and doubles. So again, I agree with Sean that it just wasn't the same excitement. It was great, obviously, to get live golf and to be at Augusta in 2020 the way the year has gone, but it just wasn't as exciting, or it wasn't that kind of thrilling finale that we were all hoping for.
Yeah, Sean, and just on that Dustin Johnson point, I suppose we better talk about the winner before we get into the other kind of stuff. He's finally got that second major. It almost feels like he's a major or 2 behind even now, I guess. Can he go on and maybe get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? It's a question. It's the boring question we always ask, but I guess it kind of gets us a little bit excited about a winner like Dustin.
Yeah, and the thing about Dustin is he's competed in all different conditions at majors. The US Open at Oakmont was, something that couldn't come quick enough for him. I think a lot of people will remember it because of Shane leading by 4 shots going into the weekend, going into Sunday, and that was another tournament plagued by delays, and I think that Shane's 3rd round was finished on the Sunday. So look, and I think for Dustin is like, what is the limit? I don't think anyone knows the limit. He's got the temperament to play in any sort of conditions. Look, he's won the Masters and the US Open now. He's got the game to win around, a links course in the Open. And that's something that I'd really be keeping an eye on. I know he spends a lot of time in Ireland before he goes over to play the Open Championship. He loves Portmarnock, the island out that side of North County Dublin. And that's the big one. And all of a sudden then, like, he has the potential to really, really go on and win. He's got that, you talk a lot now about golfers. He wins a lot. For someone that, was labelled for a long time. And I've said, and me and you've kind of discussed in the past, you always kind of underestimate now. If you sit back and look at the numbers and the consistency he's brought this year, I mean, the sky really is the limit. And what's to say he can't win, the PGA or the Open? And, God, we could be looking at a Grand Slam. And I know there's a lot of golfers in that category, but Dustin Johnson at the moment, I think, the Masters in 6 months' time, I think will be a huge sort of test of where he's at. His record around Augusta now in the last 4 or 5 starts is brilliant. And I think, we could really be looking at someone here. Look, and he's had that major struggle, if you like. I think everyone remembers Pebble Beach when Graham won, but also Whistling Straits when Martin Keimer won. Me and you were watching it, Dan, and him grounding the club in the so-called
do you remember that? Do you remember the drama of that now?
Up the 18th, and that was because Rory was in contention that day. Steve Elkinson from Australia, and it was kind of Dustin's to win. Nick Watney, I think, was leading, collapsed, and Dustin came up the 18th with a chance at a playoff and grounded his club in what he thought was just casual sand, and that cost him. And for a while there, it didn't look like he would stick with it, if you like, and stick up the top of the game. But he really has come back in the last 2 or 3 years. The work he's done with the Harmons has really propelled him to the highest level. And I can't see why he can't win at the Open next year if there is one.
Yeah, well, the Open, actually, for those that aren't aware, was similar to Wimbledon in the insurance, in the sense they were both insured for a global pandemic, believe it or not. So instead of pushing and moving theirs behind closed doors, they decided to cancel and paid out on the insurance, for those that aren't aware. Shane, just on Dustin Johnson himself, I was surprised the fact he was the first world number 1 to win a major since Rory in 2014. I was actually stunned, to be honest. I think that was on the broadcast. Can he go on and win those extra few majors that his career is probably deserved at the moment? Like, I reckon he's probably a major or 2 behind still where he should be.
I certainly agree with that, as you picking up on your point of a major or 2 behind where he should be, because he's one of those players, has that winning mentality in regular events. Is he over 20 wins on the PGA Tour? And you look, he's after breaking Tiger's record that he matched yesterday with 11 consecutive under par rounds at Augusta. So he has the firepower, he has the game, but he's just a breath of fresh air, where I think he is so laid back, such a different character. You look coming into the week, and Bryson talked about it as par 67. DJ talked about how the sandwiches were the highlight of his week. Nothing flusters him. It's a case of, obviously, he battles his own demons, that it was his 54-hole lead that it took him to convert in a major. But he just does have that all-round game. He hits that cut. He's exceptionally consistent off the tee. And he just has that relationship with his brother on the bag, where they go, even just a simple thing there on 17 today, he had about 1.5 foot putt. They still took their time, read it. And I just think he certainly has the capabilities to go on and dominate. I suppose we always talk about what players going to dominate, and it is such a competitive environment out there now. But he is just an exceptional golfer. And I think as a world number 1, you mentioned coming in, I think he kind of came under the radar. He didn't have that pressure because everyone was consumed with all other talk of Tiger, Bryson, just so many other players, what they were going to do. And as a world number 1 golfer coming in, there wasn't the pressure put on him like other years, or just other talk of if some other players were world number 1. And I agree, as Sean said, about that he has shown up in the Open before. He has shown up in other courses, and he does have the game for it. And it would be great to see him go on and kind of reach the potential that he has, because 2 majors for him isn't a whole lot. He's in his 30s now, and he certainly has a lot of game to go on and reach the next level and kind of get to the 5-6 majors, or even just 4 where Rory and Brooks are. He's not that far behind. He's halfway to him.
And I actually think, like, when you're looking around now, and even I was looking at the leaderboard, and everyone says John Rahm, well, he's going to win a major. And well, look how long it took Sergio Garcia, Luke Donald, Lee Westwood, guys who are world number 1, haven't won a major. And I think there's a lot of people that sort of go, everyone talks about Xander Schauffele as well. He's got the game to win a major. Well, like, it's been shown that it is hard. And sort of when you win one, look what Brooks Koepka's done and what it's given him. And I do think after, despite the conditions and it being soft now, Dustin Johnson has destroyed Augusta. Let's be real. He's absolutely destroyed it. And I certainly think, look, if you can win at Augusta and win at Oakmont, 2 entirely different golf courses on 2 entirely different layouts. I mean, he wants to say he can't win everywhere. Look, everyone, looking back to Darren Clark as well, when Darren Clark won the Open, Dustin Johnson was playing with him. So he's been there in all these different events. The confidence this will give him, and I think when he goes into majors from now on, he can look to the fact of, oh well, look, there's guys who haven't won one yet, so it's on them to win it. Where he can just, if you like, despite being world number one, he can sort of just go in carefree as he seems to be doing.
Well, listen, I think that's enough Dustin Johnson talk. We'll move on to Rory McIlroy. Get your comments and questions in for anyone watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're going to get to them straight away. So we've got first one in from James Mode, who was pretty unhappy we didn't get to this question, Sean. I wasn't chatting to you about this. He had the exact same question last time before in our Masters preview, which we kind of covered already. But Rory McIlroy hasn't won a major now since 2014. When can he be considered a flash in the pan? Now, it's a bit much in terms of the comments, but Shane, we'll come to you just for Rory McIlroy. The most frustrating thing is that this is just getting more and more common, and particularly with his round ones compared to round two, the scoring averages are ridiculous since 2015 in comparison. Where's Rory going to go from here in terms of, is he always going to turn up round one? I think someone was half joking on Twitter that he needs to turn up hungover for round one, but they has to try something, because it's just the same thing every single major for Rory at the moment.
Yeah, that's just unfortunately the way it has been. Just those opening rounds are an absolute killer for him. He's 77th position after the first round, and then he backdoors his way into a top 5 this week. It's just so frustrating looking at it. I suppose he was a player that I picked for this week. Just, it wasn't even golf related. It was just a case of he had the kid. I thought his fortunes had turned, and it was just going to be that feel good story of 2020. And I did tell people that he was one of the players that I was looking out for, and just gets frustrating. I suppose he had those 4 majors by the time 2014 came around. It's been 6 years, as you said, since he's last got over the line. And I wouldn't say a flash in the pan is a very harsh comment, because 4 majors is still exceptionally good. You look, he's 2 FedEx Cups. It's only Tiger Woods that he shares that with. So he is an exceptional talent. He has those wins across the world. I suppose as Irish fans, we can be nearly more critical of our own than anyone else. We're our own biggest critics. It is obviously extremely frustrating, but I just think that a flash in the pan is very harsh on what he's achieved. He's 4 majors, he eclipsed Harrington, he has 3. You look at other Irish players between McDowell, Darren Clark, and I do think he'll win again. He's young enough. He's younger than DJ. He does have the capabilities, but one thing is just, he keeps talking about this child and his distractions off the course, and I don't know. I was one of those people that fell into the trap thinking that this distraction was good for him and that he was just going to show up and blow away the field. There was even that interesting stat from Justin Ray that I read, and you look at his first rounds where, what was the exact figures? It was plus.
Yeah, it was like 6. Yeah, it was like 68. It was like his average in round 2 compared to maybe 74 in round 1. It was something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, I think it's just not showing up on the first day, and then he backdoors his way into it. And I suppose you just get, as a fan, you get tired of talking about it, that he said it himself, he was out of contention from the start there. It's even those momentum killers. You look at yesterday, he got to, it was a 5 under through 12, and then he had that sloppy 3-putt bogey on 13 and just killed the momentum. And again, I suppose where I was getting overexcited thinking, 5 under through 12, he has 2 par 5s coming up, so he can mount a bit of a late charge, and just that sloppy error. Then it's the same today. He got to 3 under through 9, bogey free. You're like, okay, can he put a bit of pressure on, because DJ had dropped 2 shots early on, and I suppose you're nearly over optimistic, but just again a bogey wayward approach shot to 10, and it's another bogey to kind of kill the momentum. It's kind of errors like that as well on the course are just kind of slowing them down. You look, that Saturday and Sunday, they were just 2, you can say, yeah, he had 2 excellent rounds in the 60s, but they just killed the momentum there straight away and just halted his run. And again, he just kind of, I suppose, made his way home in around level par for the last 5 or 6 holes on both days.
Yeah, Sean, we're asking the same points. You actually said the same points before the tournament about Rory McIlroy. If he can just get off to that good start, that sort of thing, are we going to still be talking about it? Is there potential that Royal Rush has even accelerated that this is becoming more and more amplified every time he plays with this round 1 and round 2 comparison?
Yeah, there is that, and even this week when, you think the 75 traditionally in most majors, whatever it is a really bad score. To be 10 shots off the eventual winner, that is calamitous. You are never going to come back, no matter how well you play or how badly. 10 shots to give up on a round And considering there was 4 guys at 7 under, it's just not good enough. Look, I think,
and just on the build up, Sean, sorry, just on the build up to the tournament, like, sometimes he builds these things up too much and the pressure gets to him. I don't think anyone in golf media, if anything, we're all like, let's quiet, no one say a word to Rory before this tournament. Let's just mention the new dad buzz. Like, it couldn't have been more under the radar. Shane, you mentioned Dustin Johnson coming in under the radar. Like, everyone was trying their best to get Rory in under the radar, so he with no pressure. And then round 1, he does that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a case of where his game's at the moment. Look, I think he's found something the weekend. Look, it's easy to kind of sit here and say, oh well, there wasn't much pressure on him, but I'd say he probably beat the players, bar Dustin Johnson, over the last 3 days, just on the scoring alone. Look, I think he'll win again. I think he'll win another major. He's got that experience. He's still, as Shane said, he's still young in golf in terms. Look, he burst onto the scene so young. Winning, I think his first was 2012, I'm not mistaken. So look, that's 8 years ago, and it's been a long time since his last major, and they sort of came in a flurry. I still think he has the game, and he's consistently been there. It's not as if he's had a huge drop off where he was, outside the top 20 or 30 in the world rankings. He has consistently been up there. He hasn't always played his best at times when it's really mattered, but I still think that there's a world-class golfer in there. Shane's right. I think we do underappreciate him. It was only kind of when I was listening to other people talk about the Grand Slam and how such an exclusive club it is. When you think of Phil Mickelson, how many times he's failed at the US Open, and you just kind of get that feeling of, geez, if he was to win the Masters, he goes from being sort of thereabouts into up there, and not only the golfer of his generation, but probably the Irish sports person of his generation, up there with Katie Taylor. So I think it's such a volatile spot where he's at that, if he wins Augusta, his career goes from, unbelievable to an absolute great at the game. And I still think he'll have enough chances to win at Augusta. He'll have enough chances to win another major. And, you've got to fancy his skill set around a links course again. He's got that sort of know-how, and he just needs to, it's going to be hard next year. We're not going to know what majors are going to be like with fans, or if the Open goes ahead, but you do fancy Rory to win again. I mean, look, there is so many good players in the world of golf, but make no mistakes, when Rory McIlroy competes and he's at his best, there's very few that can match him. DJ probably being a prime example of one.
Just one quick.
Does anyone have a quick guess? Yeah, go on, Shane.
Sorry, just to jump in there with my stat that went missing. So since the beginning of majors in 2015, in round 1, McIlroy has been a combined 28 over, and updated, including today's final round, from rounds 2 to 4, he's played him in a combined 64 under. It just shows how he comes. It's obviously, is it a pressure or what on the first day? But in the last 5 years, he's played his way out of it on the first day, and then like that stat of 64 under for rounds 2 to 4, that can't be far off the best combined under par score of any, I suppose, maybe bar Koepka in the last 5 years. It's just incredible how whatever it is on that first day, as you said, is it a time to come in hungover for round 1? But it's just like how he shows up for the remaining 3 days. I suppose is that the pressure's off himself. He knows he's fighting for a top 10 or backdooring his way into a top 5. But it's just like 28 over and your combined first rounds is just not, like, you're never going to have a chance when you're shooting first rounds like that. As Sean said, he was 10 shots off the leaders after round 1.
Yeah, it's amazing. And another stat, actually, because you have this picture of Rory always contending in majors. Guess how many runner-up finishes Rory has had in major championships, if you want to have a guess.
Okay, I can't think of too many.
Yeah, I would have said, I'd say between 5 and, I wouldn't even say between 5 and 10. I'd say less than 5.
Sean?
I can't think of too many. Was he runner up to Reed? I'll probably go 3.
No, there's one. Believe it or not. So this is no less shamefully taking this from No Lane podcast, which is a brilliant golf podcast. But DJ's 5 major run-ups had No Lane curious, and that I couldn't believe that Rory had one runner-up finish in major championships, which just goes to show you, like, and similar to your point, Shane, he's always backdooring into these top 5s that are never quite contending that he's in contention. So it's not like he's thrown away loads of majors at the end. He's thrown it away in round 1, which is probably the most frustrating part in that regard. But I know, Shane, you wanted to talk about Bryson. playing it as a par 67. I've it written down here for those not on YouTube, Bryson plus 18. So if he was playing to par 67, in fairness to him, he shot 18 over par. What do you make of Bryson? It was amazing the amount of hype going in, and on reflection, I got caught up in it, which it always tends to happen. Yeah, like, because I got caught up in the Bryson hype before the US PGA, lost it a bit for the US Open, so I've been all over the place in that regard. But yeah, what did you make of his 4 rounds, particularly round 1? I thought was fascinating.
It's one thing, I suppose, that it's easy for me to sit here now as the 4 rounds are finished, but I was thinking of since yesterday evening really, was everyone's talked about Bryson changing the game with the length, the distance debate, how he was going to be hitting a wedge into 13 every day, just taking out the dog leg. But no one really talked about the pressure coming into it. I know he fueled that himself by the par 67 term, but golf is such a mental game. Anything can trigger you. And it was just, everyone thought that because he hits the ball further than everyone else, because this whole distance debate, the way he's changing golf and how golf was going to change, maybe the Masters, there's so much talk that the 13th at Augusta, that tee box is going to be moved, that they've acquired new land just because what he was going to do to the course. But coming in with that much pressure, when would you say, maybe since probably going back before our generation when Tiger was dominating in the early 2000s, like when a player has that much expectation on their shoulders to come in, show up, win a major, blow away the field. As Sean said, majors aren't easy to win. You look at McIlroy struggles over the last 6 years to get over the line. And that's just one thing I think with Bryson this week is how we thought that he was going to go away, blow the field, and it was just going to be, nearly thought it was his to lose. Like, you just look at the kind of the small things like that. It was like, how many players win 2 majors in a row? Like, he's the defending champion from the US Open coming into this. There's not that many players go on that run of winning 2 majors back to back. So that's the one thing that stood out to me, was just coming in with that expectation. How easy was it going to be for him to blow away the field? And then, like, even looking there, he made 17 birdies and 1 eagle this week. Yeah, and then, like, and you think he finished, well, was he by 5?
No, tied 34th there, so just have it on the share the screen. So it's -2
under. So you think, like, he was 17 birdies, 1 eagle, that's 19 under, and then he had, was there two doubles and a triple? But yeah, he just
I had him back, so I can confirm there was. I think there was definitely a triple, I think, at some point. But yeah, I as I said, I get caught up in the hype. It's too easy. And you're right about the pressure on him, because I don't think there was a build up to a player like it. I know Rory in the past, Jordan Spieth had build up to majors. Maybe Jordan going for the 3 in a row. Didn't Jordan win the Masters in the US Open in the same year in 2015? Yeah. So maybe Jordan, but I don't think anyone had that scrutiny on Bryson. Sean, what did you make of him overall? I know you're kind of waiting to stick the knife in here.
Well, yeah, I just think he got it wrong. I mean, when you have that brute force and the ability to drive the golf ball as far as he has, you know, on certain holes in Augusta, you don't need to drive it that far to get at pins. And I think he would have learned a lot this week with everything that's happened. I think playing with Bernhard Langer today, I think would do a lot because of the week he's had, and he might have come into a realization that maybe this isn't the right way to play Augusta, and might have got something from Bernhard over the last couple of days. Yeah, look, he didn't, as James says there, he didn't help himself by saying it's a par 67. It's probably not the best thing to say. But, you know, there was times where you felt like, Jesus, he can, if he had a day, he can destroy it like few others can. You know, was it Saturday where he takes his drive off 3 and the ball gets lost? I mean, that's just purely unlucky.
Friday, I think.
Yeah, Friday. And like that's such a momentum killer. That's where the triple bogey came in. But, you know, I think if he can fuse this idea of driving it as far as he can, and sort of placing himself a lot better, like Dustin Johnson, and, you know, the guys on Sky spoke about it a lot. You know, Dustin Johnson has that power to go over bunkers and attack it. And on certain holes, maybe like 5, where you have to carry bunkers that are up the left, or on 8 where you have to carry the bunker on the right to get in a position, Dustin Johnson did it, and he showed that power. And Bryson, you just think, like, the drive, he drove on 11 the first day, and he was on the feature groups. It was the start of the coverage, and it went miles left, and John Rahm went left. But I was thinking, like, what's the difference between hitting a 330 and having 150 in to the 11th, or having 180 in from the middle of the fairway? And I think he'll have learned a lot from this week and everything that's happened, that, there isn't one size fits all to play Augusta. You can't just win it by bombing it. But to have that at length at times does help, and Johnson showed it. And I think next year, in April, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bryson change it up and really compete, because he knows whatever hole he has the power to take it on. But there's certain holes like number 7 where if you're out of position, it's a difficult shot. Whereas today, if you're in a really, if you're 280 yards in and you've 140 left, the pins are cutting a bit of a ball, you can get close. You can't get close on the points draw, and I think that's something he'll learn.
That's talking about 30. Yeah, go ahead. Shane, sorry.
Oh, sorry, that's one interesting point there you say, Sean, about when, like, for him to compete in April, because he's doing something totally new, something totally different. You look at courses like Augusta, like the Players' Championship, where it's the same course year on year. Like, he can develop that strategy. He's going to understand what went wrong. Like, obviously, the type of guy he is, he's going to do such a deep analysis of what the last 4 days were like for him. That's the one worry you could have, is how he could blow away some of these events, because he'll know exactly how the course is set up. He'll be familiar with it. This is, you can nearly say, is a trial year for him, which has brought success. He won, was at the Rocket Mortgage, and then winning the US Open. And that's something where you could see him go on, if he can stay. At the other side of it is the injury free. A lot of people are talking about that. But he really could put a stamp on some of these majors, some of these big events like the Players, as I said there, because he's just going to know exactly what his game plan is and how to alter it from, I suppose, what you say, tried or failure, and see what can go right for him.
Yeah, I think Shane's spot on. Look, Bryson DeChambeau is not the kind of player to be, world number 1 for a prolonged period. He's a bit of a, hit and miss kind of guy. He can destroy golf courses. Like, God knows what he can do, on an Open Championship if there's high winds, and he can drive any sort of green or whatever it is. But I think Shane's right. The fact that Augusta is the next, it's in April, but there's the sort of the off season now. I think in his mind, he'll have been hurt from what happened. He'll come back playing with Bernard Langer. I think will really suit him going forward, because he was out of it today. He was just kind of playing to get as high as he can, but playing to learn, I think he would have done. And I think he's got the game to really destroy Augusta. Look, the conditions won't be as soft, I think a lot of people are saying, but if they are fast and firm, you think of the drive on 2. If he hits the downhill slope with a lot of run, like, he could get that to within an 8 iron or a 9 iron coming in down the hill on 2 in the par 5. So I didn't fancy him, but in the same way, I wouldn't have been surprised to see him, get 3 or 4 eagles. And I think he missed 2 big putts for eagles. He got one today, but I think there was 2 big putts for eagles that he missed from really good positions, that still in your head went, geez, that's what he's got. He's got that ability to destroy it. And I think, not to make an early suggestion, but Bryson, I think, will have a much better week in April than he would have this week.
Yeah, and it's an interesting dynamic, I guess, back-to-back Masters as well. Sean, quickly, just on the point you made about fast and soft, do you think a fast and firm Augusta suits Bryson a lot better? Because initially when I saw the soft conditions, I was like, this will suit Bryson. All his distance is in the air, but maybe on reflection, fast and firm potentially might suit him better. Yeah,
I think because he can get more run out, because it's not just the distance he gets, but he can hit it as high as anyone, but he can also hit them low if he wants to, and he can get real chase up there. And I think the big thing for him is, if he's going into a green with an 8 iron and someone's going in with a 5 iron, he can stop the ball quicker. Whereas this week, you saw times where, Dustin Johnson on the second hole yesterday for his eagle, I think he hit like a 4 iron in there, and it sort of just not checked, but because of the softness of the green, it didn't kick on, and the slope brought it down to beside the hole. That's what length gives you. If you like, if you're going in there with a low iron when it's firm and hard, and you can get the ball to stop on those greens quicker than someone going in with a rescue would. I think that's where the key is with his length. And look, there's a lot of variables before April for Bryson. You think of his injuries. What's he going to do with this 48-degree driver? And I
or 48 inches.
48-inch driver, yeah. And I just think whatever
48-degree driver would be interesting now.
Sorry, 48-inch driver. But I think he would have learned a lot. I think he's in a better position than he was at, was it the Open Championship a few years last year, where he was at the driving range, or it might have been the US Open last year, where he had his head in hands, and people were thinking, is he overworking it? At the major this year, the US Open will give him huge belief, and next year at Augusta, I think he stands a great chance if he can sort of get a game plan. Like DJ had a game plan all week. When he wanted to, he could press the button, and I think too many people sort of go around Augusta like it's a normal week. It's not. It's a golf course that it's a one in a season, and you got to prepare for it like that.
Listen, that's brilliant. We'll move on to Tiger Woods very quickly. If you have any comments or questions, get them into us before we finish up on the broadcast. There, we're probably a few minutes left. What did you make, Shane, of Tiger's his 10 on the par 3 12th, and then to finish 5 birdies in last 6? It's almost like the switch went off him to say, right, this is the storyline here. I got a 10. I'm going to make sure I kind of fix that fairly quickly, which he did, which was pretty amazing to watch, to be fair. Like, it's probably the most, I think you saw a tweet there from Sean Tracy, it was the most entertaining part of the Masters Sunday, which was unfortunate for the rest of it, I think. But
yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there when you said, what do you think of Tiger? It was that 10, and funny point, it nearly was the highlight of the day, the way it went. But yeah, I suppose starting off, everyone had such high expectations that he shot that 4 under. He was 3 behind after day 1, and then just never got it going again. It was a very sad sight to watch him yesterday. I know he had a long day with the earlier round in the morning, but just to watch him limp and watch him struggle to even just pick the ball out of the hole, it's going to be interesting how much longer is left in him, the best of him, because you think at that level of golf, was it about 27 holes he played yesterday, and if he was in that sort of condition after it really was tough to watch. And then the error on my group chat was just going off and off watching. It was like, oh, another ball gone. One interesting point on the commentary was that he had, when he rocked up to his first Masters in the practice round, he brought 3 golf balls with him. And his caddy at the time said, oh, do you not need any more than that? And he's like, no, 3 balls is enough. And today he just went through 3 balls himself on the 12th hole. But
actually, and that crossed my mind watching it. I was thinking, I hope Joey's packed more than 3 golf balls here, just to say, because otherwise he's in massive trouble.
Yeah, it was again, you said great finish to reel off 4 birdies in a row and 5 in the last 6. That kind of feel good story again. That I suppose it all gives us that hope. We'll build up to Augusta again next April and talk about it. But there was another stat I saw that it was Bubba. Was it 2012 he won his first Masters? And he had a 10 on the 12th in 2013, went back to win it in 2014. And now you look at Tiger, he won it in 2019. Then this year, he had the 10 on 12. Will it be his year again next year? I suppose Twitter, that's one bad thing nearly. Well, depends what type of person you are. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? But the amount of stats and information is just ridiculous. Just how quick. Yeah, I'd say he barely had made the 10 and teed off on 13 before the stat was out there about comparing back to Bubba Watson. And I suppose you are going to go back with that hope, as in it's a course he knows so well. And that's one big thing about Tiger, is that they think Augusta is the place for him to add to his major haul, just because it's the same every year. He knows it inside out, and he's had those victories around there. But yeah, it was tough to watch how he just steadily declined as the week went on from that opening 68.
Yeah, and I think another stat, Sean, was Tiger's 10 was his first ever 10 on the PGA Tour. It took him 29,000 holes. I'm 90% sure that's the stat. If anyone wants to correct me, feel free. But I think, again, I like you on Twitter, I just see so many of them bombarded with stats. Well, can Tiger compete in Augusta? I think the first round, I genuinely was so impressed with him. Now, it obviously fell away. I don't think it didn't suit him, the extra days and stuff for Friday and Saturday. But do you think he can compete and maybe win another green jacket?
Yeah, I think he can. I think he probably put a lot of effort in. The conditions were soft. He had to get going. Like Tiger, I think his first round, I think it was his best first round at Augusta, maybe since '97. I'm not exactly, but it was his best first round in a long time. He likes to ease himself in, especially around Augusta, get a feel for the place. And I think because of the conditions, he really tried to, push on, because he knew he couldn't afford a 1 under par round. He gave himself too much to do. And, like Shane said, the rain and the prolonged 26 holes or whatever it was, that is going to naturally have an effect on you, and especially someone like Tiger with the back he has. I still think he has it. I think he's gonna just play as less and less. I think he'll play the big events, if you like, more than what he is doing at the moment. Look, he'll play probably the likes of the Arnold Palmer and the Memorial, stuff that have a lot of meaning on the tour and events like the Players and stuff. But I think he'll just be geared around the majors because he'll want to win at least one more, and he certainly has the ability to win around Augusta. And I think, firm and fast suits him again a lot more because it's what he knows. It's what he's, those 20 years, it's what he's been brought up on, if in that sense, it's what he is, firm and fast around Augusta. And I don't think the soft conditions really helped him because, players weren't hitting it in positions where they normally are. Like there was guys hitting, say for example, 15. How many balls only today did we really see balls go over the back of 15 because the green's firmed up and you're hitting downhill onto sort of a raised green and the balls were kind of shooting down a lot more because of the pace. That happens so often in April at Augusta, and I think that's the sort of little nooks and crannies that Tiger knows about Augusta, and that's why I still fancy him. I think he showed this week that he has the game in there. Conditions didn't really help. The compressed nature of the tee times, with the sense of there wasn't an awful amount of rest in between. Everything was kind of put into this, like, daylight ending at 5 or whatever it was. So there was that kind of element to it as well. But, you would still fancy, like I still fancy Tiger to compete 100% at Augusta. And if he's within a couple of shots come the last, 12 or 9 holes at Augusta, God, you have to fancy him. But, the game is somewhat in a decent position. He showed what we hadn't seen this year from him, that the game is in a decent position and he's just going to need to rely on it to come good at least once in the next couple of years.
Quick word, lads, on the TV coverage of Sky Sports. I know their kind of hands are tied with Augusta. Shane, go to you first. How did you find it overall?
Personally, I thought Nick Doherty is a breath of fresh air. Someone new, someone young coming in that we can all relate to. I suppose soccer or other sports like that are a bit different, that players retire in their mid-30s and then they join life as a pundit. And Nick Doherty is someone I suppose a bit of an outlier, that he gave up the game early on. I think he's a breath of fresh air, even working with the 3D kind of thing they have in the studio in the hour before the cover started today, breaking down DJ's swing as much as, well, probably 99% of it went over my head. I'm not going to be getting into those positions, but even just the overview of the 12th hole and things like that. So I did enjoy that side of it. The drone coverage was great also. I know that was obviously more American based than Sky's side of it. And then the one downfall is Butch Harmon. I think that at times he is just painful. Just even talk, like all you hear is when I coach Tiger or DJ and how he got him hitting that fade and stuff. He can be a long listen on a Sunday afternoon, but no, overall I think the coverage was pretty positive on my end anyway. But if you disagree, come at me, I suppose.
Sean, I know you're a massive Butch Harmon fan. I kind of half do agree with Shane. I don't want to disappoint you too much, Sean, on air. But I did find Butch at times a little bit over the top. Like, he's funny in certain parts. Now, the fairness and delay didn't help because he was recording from Las Vegas. But
yeah, I think that's like, it's the year 2020. They're not on the property at Augusta and all. Look, I still think Butch adds a huge amount. I think Paul McGinley's very good as well. Probably a little bit too stats based. I mean, he just comes at you, he bombards you at times with stats.
Like a Twitter feed in front of your face, isn't it? Before you go into it, yeah.
And there's like every now and then he'll just come up with a green and regulation stat, and like he knows, like you can tell he puts all this effort into it, and he's unbelievable at it. And to his credit, he really fancied Dustin Johnson from the start this week. Look, I think he's world number one. People are bound to fancy him, but yeah, Ewan Murray on Sky is as good as they get, really. I mean, even today when the golf wasn't going, as compelling as it normally is, you still sort of are drawn into it. And I think he kind of called it from early yesterday, and even he put up a tweet, Ewan, that it wasn't as exhilarating as what he expected it. And I think it probably sums the whole week up well, that tweet did, and his discussion on Sky. But no, I still like Butch, and I think the delay probably didn't help, but it still is a bit bonkers that you're watching and the leaders go off and you aren't seeing them tee off, and I know it's the Masters and they've had it that whole way, and even when you're grown up you can still remember watching snippets of Rory hit a shot on 3 when he's teed off an hour ago, and look at it, it's it's not.
It's ridiculous in this day and age that the Masters app is your best. They can't get that all in the broadcast, or it's frustrating. I couldn't believe, because I think it's because of the 3 balls to 2 balls, so they didn't decide. They only had a certain amount of time coverage, and the 3 balls obviously take longer. But I couldn't believe the first tee shot wasn't shown in full live coverage. Do you know what I mean? The Paul McGinley's getting snippets of it to talk about.
Yeah,
or even just looking at. Sorry.
Yeah,
no, go ahead, Shane.
I think it's the way it's been the last while, and I think you just kind of what you've become accustomed to. And look, I don't think it'll ever really change.
Or even the on-course commentators, Sky have such a good job. Where you look at Bones does it for the US channels, and Rich Beam was there this week, and is it 4 holes he's allowed to do on-course commentary from, and a lot of that's even from a cabin somewhere. So they've such a control over it. It's ridiculous. You think there's so much technology, there's so much, I suppose, insight to be gained with new cameras, I suppose, up close to the players with no fans. And then just think an on-course commentator is allowed to cover 4 holes of a whole round. When you're thinking that should be nearly overloading people with information. Like, you look at other sports out there using this lockdown as a chance to really showcase what they have, nearly overload you with content. And then this is still very structured and kind of let out in dribs and drabs to the media.
Well, that's one thing I thought would change, because Augusta, because of the tradition and whatever, it has always been strict on the only people inside the ropes are the players, the caddies, and the people sort of the score, like operating with them, and the rules officials. And that's one thing, because of no fans and they weren't going with ropes. I just presumed that Rich Beam or whoever it was could get close, and it's always been the way. Like Shane said, I remember when Howard Clark was doing it, he used to just sit on the bank of number 12. That's where he could operate from. And
it's like getting commentary off of someone who's paid a ticket to go watch the Masters, as opposed to someone who's reading the putts.
And you think of the insight they can give you, because the thing about Wayne Riley when he's doing it for Sky and Rich Beam is, they're watching the body language of players, they're watching the interaction with each other, they're watching the interaction with the caddies, and it adds a huge amount. And the fact that even this year of all years they didn't give that, and look, there's always this sort of debate around golf coverage with Golf Channel and CBS, and Saturday nights where there's the split and all this sort of stuff, and then when the Open came to Sky, and there was all the talk around what coverage gets filtered out. Look, it's been a huge issue, golf coverage, over the last 10 years, as long as I can really remember, and I just think I don't think necessarily it's going to change anytime soon, and it's a real shame, because look, you're watching clips on the Masters app, and the Masters app is great, and maybe it's
brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant.
But maybe that is the reason the Masters don't want to give this early coverage, because they want people going to the app and all the stuff that comes around it, and that's probably it, because I can't think of many other logical reasons.
Or one big up to Sky. Sorry, just one big up to Sky in terms of showcasing the game and getting it out to a wider audience, was that Amen Corner was free on YouTube for the 4 days. I know for me personally anyway, I was sitting on the couch and I had the general coverage on the TV and I had the laptop for Amen Corner. That was one thing, I suppose, got people more involved. There was a chance to watch some of that. And one thing about the on-course commentary that lacked was with the mud balls. You had John Ram, every time I looked at him, he seemed to be making a comment post swing to a mud ball. You had that kind of insight, a player on the course walking side by side inside the ropes. You'd know what the player's expecting. That's what you see from other events, is that they hit a drive and you're straight away, the on-course commentator's like, oh, this is the lie they have. This is what they're facing when they get to the ball. And because of the conditions, but then the other side of it is, do Augusta want people knowing that conditions are soft and that you're getting a mud ball in the biggest major of the year.
Absolutely. And just one point on Wayne Riley, like I remember going to the Open and just Wayne Riley walking by, and we're all shouting radar at Wayne, he's coming back, and it just brings the fans into it. I know the fans aren't there, and Sean, you've had your own experience with Wayne Riley, but I do want to finish on an over-unders majors there, because we've kind of run a little bit over. So the over-unders, lads, I'm going to spring this on you right on live on air. I am going to give you a number. So for example, the first one's going to be Tiger Woods, over 15.5 majors. Is he going to win another major, yes or no? And you have to decide over or under. So will Tiger go over or under 15.5 majors? Sean, one word.
Over.
Shane?
Over.
Rory McIlroy, I've set the line at 6.5. He's currently on 4, so he has to win 3 to be over. Over or under, Sean? Sorry. It's a tough question. I think I've set a good line there.
Under, but he'll have the Grand Slam.
Oh, wow. Shane?
Under, but I won't go on the line and say that he'll get the Grand Slam, but I will say under.
Wow, so that's not good.
I can just picture you and Murray saying Rory's redemption at Augusta. That's all I have in my head.
Bryson, I've set the line a bit ambitiously because I'm a big Bryson. I'm gone 3.5. It's a tough line to set, Shane. Over or under 3.5 majors for Bryson?
If he stays fit, yeah. That's one thing I'm interested as far as the fitness.
Paul McGinney speaks a lot about that. Sean?
I would say over, but I'd be curious to find out what the USGA and the RNA are going to do around driver lengths and all that sort of stuff, and will they try and combat Bryson? But I think as it stands, well and truly over, yeah.
And Sean, sticking with you, Dustin Johnson's got 2 majors, 4.5. I've set the line. Over or under?
Over.
Shane?
Under.
Oh, wow! He's only going to win 2 more majors.
I think it's just so competitive now.
It is. Yeah.
Wolf, everyone, Xander Schauffele is someone that is just every major. I think there's more pressure on him to win a major than anyone. I think it's just
ridiculous.
The US lads build him up so big, and he's an exceptional talent, but you're not just guaranteed a major. But you have to look at Xander, look at Matthew Wolf, Mark. Was obviously going to get another one. I think it's just so competitive, and that's one thing with Rory that we kind of fall into is thinking he was going to dominate like Tiger, but it's just not like those days anymore. It is ridiculously competitive. You look at the amount of players, as you said, this is only DJ's second major.
And even Tiger, he won 14 majors, but he dominated for years. But 14 majors, what were the other amount of majors that he didn't win? Last couple I picked out, I went Jordan Spieth because he's won the 3 majors. He's going to get over 3.5. I.e., he's going to win 1 more major, Sean.
Yeah, I think he'll win around. I think he'll win at Augusta.
Wow, you think he'll get back eventually? Because he's been a while finding this game, Shane. Do you reckon he can get sneak away a major?
He's someone at the start I would have been against because he was taking him away from Rory, but he's someone I've just grown to love, and I think he's too good not to. I just think 1 more major he should get there, but you think he can't continue this run of struggling as bad as he is. I think there is a time where he's going to have that upturn in form, and he will start to compete again, hopefully.
And the thing is, you have to remember is look at some of the dark places golfers have been. Look at Tiger Woods, and everyone counted him out. But I think the thing with Jordan is the fact that he's going to be playing in Augusta for another 15, 20 years. This guy has the game, and I think the one thing that he needs to find is he just needs to find something in his golf game that he can always go back to. And I think that's the problem with him. He's constantly chasing something at the moment that he just if you doesn't have. He's not the biggest hitter on tour. He's not even driving it well at the moment. So but I do think he will win another one. I think a lot of golfers are going to fall into the trap. I know John Rahman's got unbelievable golf game, but what's to say he won't win it? What's to say he won't win a major? Because there is a lot of pressure on these golfers. Look at who would have thought when Lee Westwood burst onto the scene that he wouldn't win a major. Luke Donald, guys like this that were world number 1. And there's a lot of people.
It's nearly easier, not easier, but it's nearly more common to again wrong term or phrase. But a lot of these golfers have got to number 1. I just going to cut across you, Sean, because you mentioned John Rahm. I'm going to set the line at 2.5 majors for his career. Over or under?
Under, but I think it will. Under.
Ooh, that's okay. I'm not saying. Shane.
Yeah, I would say under as well. It's getting that first one can be so difficult. And when is he? He hasn't been in contention on a final day on, you wouldn't say numerous occasions. So yeah, I would say under.
But I think
the comparisons with Sergio Garcia are going to eventually start to come and say, look, this could take a while. Yeah, I think he's got something around Augusta. I think that could really become, potential in the next couple of years. But there's been some really good golfers that haven't won majors. Look at Monty. There's so many prime examples.
5 runner-up finishes for Monty as well. Final golfer, because just based on the world rankings, Justin Thomas. This is a tough line to set. He's won 1 major. I'm going for 3.5 as the line. Which, I'll go for 3.5. Shane, over or under?
Oh, you got me here. I'll be optimistic. I'll say over.
Wow, he's a great player. It was a weird week for him. It was weird how he just hit a few really loose shots, to be honest with you. But Sean, final golfer there, over 3.5. Yes or no? Under or over? Majors.
I think if he wins one next year, I would say I would say over, but other than that, no, because he's on a really good. He's
He's got to capitalize.
He's playing really consistently, and he hasn't capitalized. I know he won at Valhalla, I think, at the PGA, but like we haven't even mentioned Brooks, and that is something. We haven't mentioned Brooks, and that is he could fall into the Jordan Spieth category, but I still think I would fancy him for a PGA, because that those kind of courses suit him, where it's really low scoring and it's about your distant control from the wedges. And
I'm actually going to include Brooks there. I knew I'd forgotten someone. So over 5.5 majors for Brooks. Shane, he's got 4 majors.
No.
Yeah. Under. Sean, under as well. Over. Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Over.
Listen, that's good. We might do a whole podcast and go through the top 100 in the world rankings. That's a bit of crack. But listen, lads, really appreciate Shane you coming on from Talk Birdie to me. We've linked to the podcast in the description as well, guys. It's a really good golf. A lot of really good interviews there for all you golf fans out there. And Sean, thanks once again for joining me.
Nice.
Thanks very much.
And thanks everyone for cheers, Shane. And thanks very much for listening, guys. Get us at Tackling Sport on all social media channels. Cheers.